What's up, guys? My name is Chip. This is Chip's Motorsports. Got into rotary engines, just kind of tinkering. I mean, I was always a tinker. As I was young, I always took things apart and just kind of was more interested in how they function rather than just play with them as they were meant or designed to do. When I was younger, I used to work in tool and die, but I didn't work on the machines. I didn't really like it. The coolant at that time smelled so horrendous that I thought and said to myself, I don't think I'll ever do machining work. But as time went on, as I started working on these engines, and a lot of the parts and components needed to be custom made, fabricated and made to fit the application or the scenario that needed at that time. I said to myself, well, the only way I can control and be and achieve and make something that the way I want it, how I see it, is to buy the tools, learn how to use the tools, and make it. So it's just kind of, based on the income, how much money, it's how I can move and acquire the tools, the machinery, to make all this stuff.
So the biggest thing to me is I've seen this car all over the internet. Like back when I first got into RX-7s, I saw his Bill Thread and his posts on Facebook and stuff, and I've always thought this car was really, really cool and unique. But seeing it in person, seeing the metal flake and how it's all consistent laid down, the gaps on the body panels, it's really hard to get aftermarket body panels and stuff to look nice and look quality on a car, and it just looks like it was made this way. It's so beautiful in person. And then the interior, most RX-7s, you open the doors and, because they're old, they're 25 years old. But, the interior is just mint. The way the doors close, the map lid, just everything, all the plastics, everything is just really nice. And it's got a great feel to it. And all of his fittings are just the car's got $20,000 plus worth of fittings on it. And everything's just super nice.
Fittings, Oaklands, coilovers. I mean, it's got top of the line, top shelf parts. I mean, nothing was, there's nothing cheap on it. Not cheap as, went out and bought everything that I could see expensive. But it's quality products and a lot of time went in it.
So, I really like the engine bay stuff too, man.
Yeah, I mean, the engine's not in it. It's still on the engine stand. It should have been in it by now. I just got overwhelmed with jobs and just kind of coming in, so it's not much to look at, but it's an open view. The front's been sectioned, so it's cut off. You can remove it. The radiator's been moved forward, so the oil dry sump tank can fit in the front. So everything's up front. It's a dry sump system, oil tank up front. That's not in the cabin. It's not in the trunk. Everything is confined to the engine bay. I mean, everything is done. It's done pretty nice. I mean, I've seen a lot of RX-7s. I've seen a lot of work. There's a lot of nice ones out, but I've kind of took everything that I've seen nice and a lot of them, and kind of put everything together and did it in my own way. So if you look at this, there's a lot of cars in here. If you truly follow a lot of the RX-7 community, the builds,
It's attention to detail.
Yeah.
Every single nut and bolt on this car has been studied.
Yep. So once it's all together, I mean, visually it flows. There's nothing just lines or hoses or wires kind of going in their own way. Everything kind of has a visual stimulating flow to it. So it's nice.
Clint Richardson. Hey, I'm Zach Richardson. What? I'm Zach Richardson. I'm Clint Richardson, and we're Eccentric Motorsports. Rotary engines for the most part, RX-7s, LS stuff too. He does more of the LS and piston side. Well, originally we just worked on people's cars for them. Just always take it over to the Richardsons. They'll fix you up. And finally, we're like, man, we've got to come up with a name. Like, people got to have something to go by instead of just taking it over to the Richardsons. So in 2013, we started Eccentric Motorsports, and from then on out, we just kind of kept growing it and started building more rotaries. Here we are now. Yep.
All right, so this is the motor out of my RX-7. We had a few issues with it. Sent it up to Zach. He tore it down for us. And so we're up here checking it out. Just got these parts back from Chip Ursu up in Detroit. Just visited him. And yeah, man, so what you think? What's going on?
Yeah, it's definitely it's gonna be a whole lot more engine this time for sure.
Right on.
It was lacking in a few departments. This time we fixed the housings. Chip put his inserts in, so now it won't leak. He's got the O-rings inside here, so he took all the glue out because it had a little bit of a leak before.
Yeah.
The rotors, they weren't clearance before, so they weren't really safe to be going to the RPMs that David was taking it to. Now he's got the clearance, lightened rotors, everything's balanced, all the rotors are matching weight, so it's ready to spin now.
A great thing about Zach is he explains everything to you. You know, he tore the engine down, you know, free of charge. I sent it to him. He's like, look, man, I'll just tear it down. And
See what you're dealing with.
he gave me a call and he's like, look, here's what we got, you know, and documented everything, pictures, updates, really good customer service.
Yeah, I don't like leaving anybody in the dark on stuff. It's like, if I'm building your engine, I want you to know what's going on. I want you to know what you're paying for. I'm not gonna cut any corners, so I won't let you cut corners either, so
Don't ask.
don't ask.
So one thing that's really important on a four-rotor build is the accuracy of the crankshaft. Now, this crankshaft was manufactured in New Zealand, and it's decent. I mean, it does the job, and the car ran pretty great. But one thing to be taken into consideration is the accuracy of the lobe angle offset. So basically, you have the 4 lobes, one for each rotor, and those lobes are supposed to be 90 degrees apart from each other. That's important because in your ECU, when you set your timing and you tell the motor where top dead center is, every rotor is firing relative to that top dead center, and it's supposed to be 90 degrees consecutively, right? So the issue is that if these lobes are not perfectly 90 degrees from each other, then that timing is not going to be truly what you think it is on each rotor. So Zach and Chip had this crankshaft sent off to a machine shop that specializes in crankshafts and camshaft manufacturing, and we had this crankshaft blueprinted. And what we found was that the lobes were not perfectly accurate. The front rotor was like 87 degrees, and then one of the other rotors is 93 degrees, another rotor is 88 degrees, so we had basically about a 5-degree margin of error. And so that means that when you program your ECU and you tell it that every rotor is at 90, and we've been running maybe 12 degrees timing on 12 pounds of boost, that 12 degrees could actually be 15 degrees on one rotor, 11 degrees on another rotor, 10 degrees on another rotor, because you're within like 5 degrees of what you think you're running. And that can be really crucial when you're at high RPM under a lot of load, where 1 or 2 degrees of timing makes a big difference. So now that we have the blueprint, what we're able to do is program manually the actual crank angle offsets for each lobe into the software, so that that's taken into account for the firing order. And therefore, when you're tuning the car, every single crank angle will be accounted for, and that the actual timing is what it's supposed to be on each rotor. And that's going to minimize exhaust gas temperature differentials and prevent knock and help us to have a more accurate tune, which is going to be important to the longevity of the motor. So I think that's something really crucial. Anybody that's trying to do a 4-rotor engine should really look into having their crankshaft scanned. And in the future, when crankshafts are being manufactured like this, the manufacturer should be aware of this issue, and they should be sending you a blueprint so that you can tune the car adequately. In addition to that, we had some sloppiness in the keyways on this crank. So when the crank slides together, the keyways were actually kind of clicking and they were sloppy. So we actually had the keyways remachined so that the crank is nice and stiff and there's no play in it. And also the front keyway was also off about 15 thousandths of an inch, which caused the crank to be slightly off center. So we had that front keyway remachined to take the slop out, and then the offset, it was no longer offset, it was perfectly straight. So now the crank's ready to go back in the car. We got the light and balanced rotors. We have the peripheral ports that have been corrected from the water leaks with the new slugs. We have the direct water feeds for each rotor housing. And again, the entire rotational assembly has been clearanced and balanced. So we're ready to go with new apex seals, all new water seals. And we also have a billet oil pan coming for the motor and a larger turbocharger, and we should be ready to go.